The space station floated in the darkness between three suns. It was massive. Over 200 levels. Thousands of rooms. Gardens that grew plants from 100 different worlds. Training halls where future soldiers learned to fight and die for the Galactic Union. They called it Meridian Academy, the finest military school in known space. Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her small room and watched the stars. She was 22 years old. Brown skin, black hair cut short. Eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. She was the only human on the entire station. The first human ever allowed to attend. She remembered the day she arrived. The looks on their faces. 42 different species, and every single one of them had stared at her like she was a zoo animal. Some with curiosity, some with pity, most with confusion. The Kethral cadets were 8 feet tall with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. The Venshi had 4 arms and could see in complete darkness. The Threskin produced poison from glands in their necks. The Morvax could survive in the vacuum of space for 10 minutes without protection. And then there was Elena, soft skin, blunt teeth. No claws, no poison, no special abilities at all. She needed 8 hours of sleep every night. She could not see in the dark. She could not breathe underwater. A fall from a moderate height could break her bones. A single cut could make her bleed out if not treated. The other cadets did not understand why she was here. Neither did the instructors. Commander Vorix was in charge of combat training. He was a Kethral, old and covered in battle scars. His left eye was missing, replaced with a mechanical implant that glowed red in the dim light. He had killed enemies on 30 different worlds. He had trained soldiers for 40 years. He looked at Elena's file and shook his head. Humans, he said to his aide, a thin creature with too many eyes. Why did command send me a human? The aide checked the documents. The integration protocol. Commander, the humans recently joined the Galactic Union. This is a diplomatic gesture, a sign of trust. Trust. Vorix made a sound that might have been a laugh. She will be dead within a month. The training alone will kill her. Humans are fragile. They break. He was not wrong about that. Humans did break. Elena had broken bones 3 times in her life. She had scars on her body from accidents and fights. She knew exactly how fragile human bodies could be. But Vorix did not know everything about humans. No one in the galaxy did. The first week was difficult. Elena woke up before dawn and trained until her muscles screamed. She ran obstacle courses designed for species with 4 legs or wings. She fought in combat simulations against opponents twice her size. She studied tactics and strategy and weapon systems until her eyes burned. The other cadets avoided her. Not out of cruelty, but out of confusion. They did not know what to do with her. She was too weak to be a threat, too strange to be a friend. She existed in a space between, neither predator nor prey. A Kethral cadet named Sorn was the first to speak to her directly. He found her in the training hall late one night. She was practicing hand-to-hand combat against a holographic opponent. Sweat covered her body. Her knuckles were bleeding. "You are still awake," Sorn said. His voice was deep, like rocks grinding together. Elena did not stop moving. She blocked a strike and countered with a punch to the hologram's throat. "I need more practice. You have been practicing for 6 hours. Not enough." Sorn watched her for a long moment. His red eyes tracked her movements with the precision of a born predator. "You fight strangely," he said. "You do not attack. You wait. I counter. Why?" Elena finally stopped. She turned to face him, breathing hard. "Because I cannot match your strength, or your speed, or your reach. So I wait for you to make a mistake. Then I punish it." Sorn considered this. "And if your opponent makes no mistakes?" "Everyone makes mistakes." Elena wiped blood from her knuckles. Eventually, this answer seemed to satisfy him. He nodded once and left without another word. Elena went back to training. The weeks passed. Elena survived. This surprised everyone, including herself. She was not the best at anything. She was not the fastest or the strongest or the most skilled. But she did not quit. She did not break. She kept going, day after day, refusing to fall. Commander Vorix began to watch her more closely. He did not understand what he was seeing. By every measure he knew, she should have failed. Her body was inferior. Her senses were dull. She had no natural weapons, and yet she was still here. One day, he stopped her after training. "Cadet Vasquez." Elena snapped to attention. "Commander." Vorik circled her slowly, studying her like a puzzle he could not solve. You do not belong here. You know this. Yes, Commander. You are weaker than every other cadet. Slower. More fragile. Yes, Commander. Then why do you stay? Elena thought about the question. She thought about Earth, about her grandfather, who had fought in 3 wars, about her mother, who had died protecting civilians from a terrorist attack, about her father, who had worked himself to death in a factory so Elena could have a better life. She thought about 10,000 years of human history, war and death and suffering, plagues that killed millions, ice ages that nearly ended their species, predators that hunted them in the dark, and through all of it, humans had survived. They had kept going. They had refused to die. Because giving up is not in my nature, she said. Vorik stared at her for a long moment. Then he made that sound again. The one that might have been a laugh. We will see, he said. We will see. That night, Elena sat in her room and looked at the pen in her hand. It was old, metal, heavy. Her grandfather had given it to her before she left Earth. He had carried it through 3 wars. A soldier needs a weapon, he had told her. But more than that, a soldier needs a mind. This pen has written orders that saved thousands of lives. It has signed treaties that ended wars. Never forget, Elena. The deadliest weapon is not the one that destroys. It is the one that thinks. She did not fully understand what he meant. Not yet, but she would. The alarms came without warning. Elena was in the station library, studying tactical formations from ancient battles. It was late. Most cadets were asleep. The library was empty except for her and a few maintenance drones. Then the lights went red. The sirens screamed, and a voice came over the station speakers, mechanical and cold. Warning. Hull breach on levels 40 through 45. Unknown hostiles detected. All cadets report to safe rooms immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Elena stood up. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. She had trained for emergencies. She knew the protocols, but something felt wrong. The lights were flickering. The sirens were cutting in and out. And in the distance, echoing through the metal corridors, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Screaming. Not one voice. Dozens. Screaming in terror and pain. Elena looked down at the pen in her hand. She did not know why she had been holding it. She did not know why she did not put it down now. She slipped it into her sleeve. Then she started walking toward the screams. The corridors were dark. Emergency lighting painted everything in shades of red and black. Shadows moved on the walls like living things. The air smelled wrong. Metal and blood and something else. Something animal. Elena moved quietly through the station. She had trained for this. Stay low. Stay quiet. Use the darkness as cover. Find a weapon. Find allies. Survive. But the screams made it hard to think. They came from everywhere. Above her, below her, echoing through the ventilation shafts like the cries of ghosts. She heard voices she recognized, cadets she had trained with, instructors who had pushed her to her limits. Dying. She pressed herself against a wall and forced herself to breathe. Panic was the enemy. Panic made you stupid. Panic got you killed. What had breached the station? Pirates? Enemy soldiers? The Galactic Union had many enemies. A sound answered her question. A clicking noise, wet and organic, coming from the corridor ahead. Then footsteps, heavy, slow. The footsteps of something that did not need to hurry. Something that knew its prey had nowhere to run. Elena looked around the corner, and she saw them. The Vorax. She knew them from her xenobiology classes. Every cadet studied them. The most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. 8 feet tall. Bodies covered in black chitin-like armor. Forearms ending in claws that could cut through steel. Heads shaped like nightmares. With mandibles that could crush bone like paper. They had been quarantined for 200 years. Their entire sector of space was forbidden. Ships that entered never returned. The Galactic Union had decided it was easier to avoid them than fight them. And now 12 of them were walking through the academy. Elena watched as 2 Vorax moved down the corridor. They were dragging bodies behind them. Cadets. Dead. Their skulls had been removed. Trophies. The Vorax did not hunt for food. They hunted for sport. They collected the skulls of sentient species the way humans collected coins or stamps. It was their culture, their religion, their reason for existing. and they had chosen Meridian Academy as their hunting ground. Elena pulled back behind the corner. Her hands were shaking. Fear. Real fear. She had felt it before, but never like this. These were not opponents she could outlast. These were not enemies she could outthink. These were monsters. Run, her instinct screamed. Hide. Find a safe room and wait for rescue. But rescue would not come in time. She knew this. The station's communication systems were down. The power grid was failing. By the time help arrived, everyone would be dead, including her. She looked at the pen in her hand. A stupid weapon. A pathetic weapon. Against creatures with armored skin and claws that could tear her apart in seconds. But it was what she had. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind. The deadliest weapon is not the one that destroys. It is the one that thinks. Elena took a deep breath. Then she started moving again. Not toward the safe rooms. Not away from the screaming. Toward it. The Vorax pack leader was named Crixal. He was old by his species standards. Scarred from 100 hunts. His chitin was cracked and discolored in places where enemies had wounded him before he killed them. His mandibles were chipped from crushing too many skulls. He had hunted 30 worlds. He had killed 11 different species. He had never lost a single member of his pack to prey. Tonight would be no different. The academy was perfect. Thousands of young soldiers, soft and untested. Dozens of species, each with skulls worth collecting. And the station itself was isolated, far from any military support. By the time the Union responded, Crixtal and his pack would be gone, vanished into the dark between stars with their trophies. He clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as his hunters spread through the station. They moved through the darkness like shadows. Their thermal vision painted the world in heat signatures. The prey glowed bright and warm against the cold metal walls. So easy to find. So easy to kill. Crixtal had already collected 3 skulls. A Kethril, 2 Venshi. Good trophies, strong species. They had fought back, which made the kills more satisfying. But most of the prey just ran. They screamed and fled and died without dignity. It was almost disappointing. He was moving toward the central hub when he detected something strange. A heat signature, small and dim, moving toward him instead of away. Crixal stopped. His pack stopped with him. They clicked at each other in confusion. Prey did not approach predators. This was a law of nature. This was truth. Yet the signature kept coming. Slow, steady, unafraid. Crixtal's curiosity overcame his caution. He moved forward to meet it. Elena stepped into the corridor and faced the monster. Up close, the Vorax was even more terrifying. Its eyes were empty black holes that reflected no light. Its mandibles dripped with blood from its recent kills. It towered over her, twice her height and 5 times her weight. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Crixtal studied the small creature before him. He had never seen anything like it. Soft skin, no armor, no claws, no visible weapons. It stood on 2 legs and had 2 arms and a flat face with small eyes. Weak, he thought. Pathetic. Barely worth killing. But there was something in the creature's eyes that made him pause. Something he had not seen in prey before. It was not afraid. No, that was not quite right. It was afraid. He could smell the fear hormones coming off its skin. He could hear its heart beating fast in its chest. But it was not running. What are you? He asked. His voice was a series of clicks and growls that his translator converted to words. The creature spoke. Human. Crixtal searched his memory. He had never heard of this species. They were not in any of his hunting records. They were not known to the Vorax. Why do you approach me, human? He asked. Do you wish to die? The human looked at him with those strange, steady eyes. No, it said. I wish to live. That is why I am here. You are confused. I am the predator. You are the prey. Am I? Crixtal made a sound of amusement. The creature was insane. That was the only explanation. Fear had broken its mind. You have no weapons, he said. You have no claws, no armor, no poison. You are soft and small and weak. How can you possibly think you can fight me? The human smiled. It was a strange expression. Wrong somehow. The smile of something that should be afraid but was not. Let me show you, it said. Crixtal lunged. He was fast. Faster than anything his size should be. His claws reached for the human's throat. ready to tear it open and add another skull to his collection. But the human moved. Not away. Not backward. It moved into his attack, sliding under his claws, stepping inside his reach. And then there was a flash of metal, something small and sharp, and a burst of pain unlike anything he had ever felt. The pen entered through the soft tissue under his jaw, the only spot on his body that was not armored. It punched through flesh and muscle and into his brain. Krixtal was dead before he hit the ground. The other Vorax froze. They stared at their fallen leader. They stared at the small, soft creature standing over his body, a bloody metal spike in its hand. They did not understand what they were seeing. It did not make sense. Prey did not kill predators. This was the law. This was truth. The human looked at them. Blood dripped from its weapon. Its eyes were cold and hard. Next, it said. For the first time in their lives, the Vorax felt something new. Fear. The body of Krixal lay on the cold metal floor. Blood pooled around it, black and thick. The greatest hunter of the Vorax, dead in less than a second, killed by prey. The 11 remaining Vorax stared at Elena. Their mandibles clicked in confusion and rage. They could not understand what had happened. Their leader was dead. Their invincible, unstoppable leader was dead, and the creature that killed him was still standing. Elena's heart was pounding. Adrenaline flooded her system. Every nerve in her body was screaming at her to run, to hide, to escape. This was the fear response, the survival instinct that had kept humans alive for millions of years. But there was another instinct, older and darker. The instinct that had made humans the apex predators of their world. The instinct to fight. She gripped the pen tighter. It was slippery with blood. Her grandfather's pen. A simple tool. A weapon now. The largest Vorax stepped forward. It was even bigger than Krixtal had been. Its chitin was pure black, unmarked by scars. Young and strong and very, very angry. You will die slowly, it said. We will take your skull. We will hang it above our ship as a warning. No prey escapes the Vorax. Elena did not respond with words. She shifted her weight, lowering her center of gravity. She had studied their species. She knew their weaknesses. They were ambush predators. They attacked from darkness, using surprise and overwhelming force. They were not used to prey that fought back. They were not used to long battles. Humans were different. Humans were persistence predators. On Earth, they had hunted animals by chasing them for hours, for days, until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans did not need to be faster or stronger. They just needed to keep going. And humans never stopped. The Vorax attacked. It was fast. All 4 arms slashing at once. A whirlwind of claws and chitin. Any other species would have been torn apart in seconds. Elena was not any other species. She did not try to block. She did not try to match its strength. She moved, slipping between the strikes, reading the patterns, waiting for the opening. It came after 12 seconds. The Vorax overextended its right side, leaving a gap in its defense. Elena struck. The pen drove into its eye socket. The creature screamed, a sound of pure agony that echoed through the corridor. It stumbled backward, clawing at its face. Elena did not give it time to recover. She moved forward, grabbed one of its lower arms, and used its own momentum to throw it off balance. As it fell, she drove the pen into the gap between its head and its body. The joint where the chitin was thin. The Vorax stopped moving. 2 dead, 10 remaining. Elena pulled the pen free and faced the others. Her breathing was heavy. Her muscles burned. Blood dripped from cuts on her arms where the claws had grazed her. But she was still standing. The Vorax hesitated. They looked at each other, clicking in their strange language. Elena could not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. They were afraid. Good. You do not know what I am, she said. Her voice was steady, calm. Let me explain. She took a step forward. The Vorax took a step back. I am human. We come from a world called Earth, a death world, a planet where everything wants to kill you. The water, the air, the animals, the plants, even the ground shakes and opens up to swallow you whole. Another step forward, another step back. We survived. Not because we were strong, not because we were fast, not because we had armor or claws or poison. We survived because we refused to die. The lead Vorax made a sound of disbelief. You are prey. Soft, Weak. Yes, Elena said. We are soft. We break easily. But we keep fighting after we break. We keep going when our bodies fail. We keep killing when we should be dead. She held up the bloody pen. You think this is a weapon? It is not. It is a tool. Humans turn everything into weapons. Rocks, sticks, fire, words, ideas. Give a human long enough, and they will find a way to kill you with anything. The Vorax looked at each other again. The clicking grew louder, more urgent. Elena knew what they were thinking. They were pack hunters. They worked together. They would try to surround her, overwhelm her with numbers. She could not let that happen. You have a choice, she said. Leave now, and some of you might survive. Stay, and I will kill every single one of you. Silence. Then the lead Vorax made a sound that might have been laughter. You are 1. We are 10. You cannot win. Elena smiled that wrong smile again. I do not need to win. I just need to make you lose. The Vorax attacked together. All 10 of them. Rushing at her from every direction. Claws and mandibles and armored bodies. A wave of death that should have crushed her instantly. Elena ran. Not away from them. Through them. She ducked under the first strike, rolled between 2 others, and sprinted down the corridor. The Vorax followed, their heavy footsteps shaking the floor. This was what she wanted. She could not fight 10 of them at once, but she did not have to. The station was her weapon now. She knew the layout from her studies. Every corridor, every room, every maintenance shaft. She knew where the emergency systems were. She knew where the pressure doors could be sealed. She knew where the darkness was deepest and where the light could blind. The Vorax relied on thermal vision. They saw heat, not light. And Elena had noticed something during the fight. The emergency lights were strobing. Red, then black. Red, then black. And every time they flashed, the Vorax flinched slightly. The sudden change in temperature confused their sensors, made them hesitate. She filed this information away for later. The corridor ahead split into 2 paths. Elena took the left path, then immediately reversed and doubled back to the right. The Vorax followed her heat trail, confused by the misdirection. This bought her seconds. Precious seconds. She reached an emergency station and grabbed a flare from the supply kit. Then she kept running. The Vorax were faster than her, stronger than her, but they were also bigger. They could not fit through the maintenance shafts as easily. They could not climb the ladders as quickly, and they could not run as long. Humans were built for endurance. Other species sprinted. Humans marathoned. After 10 minutes, Elena was still running. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she kept going. The Vorax were slowing down. She heard it in their footsteps. The rhythm was changing. They were getting tired. Their massive bodies required massive amounts of energy, and they were burning through it trying to catch her. Good. She turned a corner and found herself at a junction. 4 corridors, leading in 4 directions. She stopped in the center and waited. The first Vorax came around the corner 30 seconds later. It was breathing hard, its mandibles hanging open. It saw her and charged. Elena lit the flare. The sudden burst of heat and light overwhelmed the creature's thermal vision. It screamed, clawing at its eyes. Blinded, Elena moved in and killed it. The pen found the gap in its armor. The creature fell, 3 dead, 9 remaining. She picked up the flare and kept moving. The Vorax would find their dead packmate. They would be angry. They would be scared. Scared enemies made mistakes. And Elena was very good at punishing mistakes. The hunt had changed. The Vorax did not understand how. They were the hunters. They had always been the hunters. For 10,000 generations, they had been the apex predators of every world they touched. Now they were the prey. 9 of them remained. 9 against 1 small, soft creature with no claws and no armor, and no reason to still be alive. They spread out through the station, searching for her heat signature. But the signatures were everywhere. She had been running for so long, touching so many surfaces, that her residual heat was all around them. It was like trying to find a single drop of water in an ocean, and every time they got close, something happened. The 4th Vorax died in a maintenance corridor. It had been chasing a heat signature when the pressure door slammed shut on its body. The door was designed to seal breaches. It was strong enough to crush steel. Chitin was not steel. The 5th and 6th Vorax died together. They had cornered the human in a storage room. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. They had charged in, ready to tear her apart. The room was filled with emergency coolant tanks. The human had punctured them before they arrived. The temperature dropped so fast that their blood began to freeze in their veins. They died slow, cold deaths. The human walked out without a scratch. The seventh Vorax died in the dark. It had been smart. It had turned off its translator, relying on its natural senses. It had moved slowly, carefully, watching for any sign of the human. It never saw her coming. She dropped from the ceiling, wrapping a length of cable around its throat. It was strong, much stronger than her. It could have thrown her off easily, but the cable was cutting off its air, and humans understood something about oxygen that the Vorax did not. Humans could hold their breath for minutes. They could function on less oxygen than almost any other species. Their ancestors had evolved in thin mountain air, in deep underwater caves, in places where every breath was precious. The Vorax needed more oxygen. Its massive body demanded constant fuel, and when that fuel was cut off, even for a few seconds, it began to fail. Elena held on. The creature thrashed and slashed, cutting her arms and legs. Blood poured down her body, but she did not let go. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. The Vorax collapsed. Elena lay on the floor next to it for a long moment. Her body was broken. Blood pooled beneath her. She had cuts on every limb, deep gashes that should have made her pass out from pain. She got up anyway. 4 remaining. The survivors gathered in the central atrium. It was a large open space, designed for assemblies and ceremonies. Good sight lines. No places to hide. They thought they were safe there. They were wrong. Elena watched them from the ventilation system above. She was too wounded to fight 4 of them at once. Even wounded, even scared, they were still deadly. One mistake and she was dead, so she would not make mistakes. She had studied the Vorax communication system in her xenobiology classes. They used subsonic clicks and vibrations, sounds too low for most species to hear. But the Academy's systems could detect them. Elena had spent 10 minutes at a security terminal, analyzing the recorded sounds from the attack, matching patterns, learning their language. Now she used it against them. She activated the station's internal speakers and played a recording. A Vorax distress call, modified slightly. The sound of a packmate dying, calling for help. The 4 Vorax in the atrium reacted instantly. 2 of them ran toward the sound, leaving only 2 behind. Divide and conquer, the oldest strategy in human warfare. Elena dropped from the ventilation shaft onto the first remaining Vorax. The pen drove into its skull before it knew she was there. The second one turned, claws raised, too slow. She rolled under its strike, grabbed one of its lower arms, and used the sharp edge of her pen to cut the tendons. The arm went limp. The creature screamed. Elena did not stop. She kept cutting. Arms, legs, joints. Everywhere the chitin was thin. Everywhere the flesh was exposed. She was not trying to kill it quickly. She was taking it apart. The creature fell, crippled and bleeding. Elena stood over it, breathing hard. "Where are the others?" she asked. The Vorax made a sound of hatred. "They will kill you. They will find you and kill you and take your skull." "No," Elena said. "They will not." She killed it with the pen. Clean, quick, merciful, in its way. 6 dead, 2 remaining. She found the other 2 in the eastern corridor. They were standing over the speakers that had played the distress call, confused and angry. When they saw her, they did not attack immediately. They just stared. Elena knew why. She looked like a nightmare, covered in blood, her and theirs, wounds all over her body, eyes that had seen death and dealt it, a small metal weapon in her hand, dripping red. "You killed them all," one of the Vorax said. Its voice was quiet, broken. "How? How did you kill them all?" Elena thought about the question. She thought about Earth, about the predators that had hunted humans in the ancient darkness. Lions and wolves and bears and sharks, creatures with claws and teeth and strength that humans could never match. And yet humans had survived. They had more than survived. They had conquered. They had become the apex predators of their world, not through strength, but through cunning, through cooperation, through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "You asked what I am," Elena said. "I will tell you." She walked toward them. They did not retreat. They were too tired, too confused, too scared. "I am human. I am small and soft and weak, but my ancestors killed every predator on my world. Not with claws, not with armor, with rocks and sticks and fire, with traps and poison and patience, with minds that never stopped thinking and bodies that never stopped moving. She stopped a few feet away from them, close enough to strike, close enough to die. You are apex predators, she said. So were we. But we learned something that you never did. The strongest predator is not the one with the biggest claws. It is the one that adapts, the one that learns, the one that turns every disadvantage into a weapon. The Vorax looked at each other. Something passed between them, an understanding, an acceptance. They attacked. Elena was ready. The fight was brutal, short, violent. She took wounds that should have killed her. Claws tore through her flesh. Mandibles snapped inches from her face. She felt ribs crack, felt blood fill her mouth, but she did not stop. Humans did not stop. When it was over, 2 more Vorax lay dead on the floor. Elena stood above them, swaying. Her body was ruined. Blood dripped from wounds too numerous to count. The pen in her hand was bent, nearly broken, but she was alive. She was alive. The station's emergency lights flickered one last time and then stabilized. The sirens went silent. And in the distance, Elena heard the sound of boots on metal. Rescue was coming. Too late for the Vorax. Too late for the cadets who had died. But not too late for her. She collapsed against the wall and slid to the floor. The pen fell from her fingers and clattered on the metal. She closed her eyes and waited. Commander Vorax was the first to find her. He came with a squad of security officers, armed with plasma rifles and wearing full combat armor. They had expected to find bodies. They had expected to find the Vorax celebrating their kills, preparing to escape with their trophies. They had not expected this. Elena Vasquez sat against the wall, barely conscious. Blood pooled around her, some of it red, some of it black. Her uniform was torn to shreds. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was shallow. And around her lay the bodies of the Vorax, all 12 of them. Vorax stood frozen in the corridor, his one good eye scanning the scene again and again. He could not process what he was seeing. It did not make sense. It could not make sense. Commander, one of his officers said. Is she? Did she? Vorax did not answer. He walked forward slowly, stepping over the bodies of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. He knelt beside the human and looked at her face. Her eyes opened. Slowly, painfully. She focused on him. Commander, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Cadet Vasquez. He could not think of anything else to say. What happened here? Elena looked at the bodies around her. She looked at the blood on her hands. She looked at the bent, broken pen lying on the floor beside her. They attacked the academy, she said. I stopped them. You stopped them. You. Alone. Yes. Vorax shook his head. How? You have no claws. No armor. No weapons. How did you kill 12 Vorax? Elena picked up the pen. It was ruined now. The metal was bent. The tip was broken. But it had done its job. I had a weapon, she said. Vorax stared at the small metal object. He did not understand. He would never understand. Get medical teams here now, he barked at his officers. She needs treatment immediately. The officers moved to obey. Elena felt hands lifting her, carrying her toward the medical bay. The world spun around her. Darkness crept at the edges of her vision, but she did not pass out. Not yet. She had one more thing to do. Commander, she said. Vorax walked beside her stretcher. Save your strength, Cadet. You can give your report later. The other cadets. How many survived? Vorax hesitated. Many. The safe rooms held. The Vorax were too focused on hunting to breach them. He paused. You drew their attention. You gave the others time to hide. Elena closed her eyes. Good. Good. You almost died. Almost. She agreed. But I did not. They reached the medical bay. Doctors and nurses swarmed around her, shouting orders and preparing equipment. Elena felt needles enter her arms, felt the cold rush of medication entering her bloodstream. The darkness was coming. She could not fight it anymore. Before she lost consciousness, she heard Vorax say something. His voice was quiet, almost respectful. You were wrong, Commander. The humans are not weak. They are not prey. They are something else entirely. Elena smiled. Then she let the darkness take her. She woke 3 days later. The medical bay was quiet, clean, white. She lay in a bed with tubes connected to her arms and machines beeping softly beside her. Her body ached everywhere. Bandages covered most of her skin. Moving was agony, but she was alive. A figure sat in the chair beside her bed. She turned her head and saw Commander Vorix watching her. "You are awake," he said. "Yes. The doctors say you should have died. The wounds you sustained were fatal by any reasonable measure. Your heart stopped twice during surgery. I got better." Vorix made that sound again, the one that might have been a laugh. "You humans have a strange sense of humor." Elena tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain exploded through her body. She fell back against the pillows, gasping. "Do not move," Vorix said. "You need rest." "What happened?" "While I was unconscious." Vorix was silent for a moment. "The security footage was recovered. Every moment of your fight was recorded and analyzed." He paused. "It has been shared with Galactic Union Command, and with the military councils of every member species." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with her injuries. Why? Because they needed to see it. They needed to understand. Understand what? Vorix leaned forward. His scales reflected the soft light. His mechanical eye glowed red. "When your species applied to join the academy, we saw your physical characteristics. Small bodies, soft skin, no natural weapons. We assumed you were prey animals who had somehow developed technology. We assumed you were weak." He shook his head slowly. "We were wrong. We looked at what you lacked. We never asked what you had." Elena thought about her grandfather's words. "The deadliest weapon is not the one that destroys. It is the one that thinks." "What do we have?" she asked. "Everything." Vorix stood up and walked to the window. The stars glittered outside, cold and eternal. Endurance, adaptability, creativity, the ability to take any tool and make it a weapon, the ability to keep fighting when you should be dead. He turned to face her. "But most of all, you have something that no other species possesses. You have the capacity to be afraid, and to act anyway. To know that you are going to die and to keep fighting. Every other species flees from death. Humans run toward it." Elena looked at the bandages covering her body. She thought about the fear she had felt when she faced the Vorax, the terror that had screamed at her to run, and she thought about how she had walked toward the screaming anyway. "We call it courage," she said. "Yes, courage." Vorix spoke the word like he was tasting it. "We have a similar concept, but it is not the same. For us, courage means fighting without fear. For you, it means fighting despite fear. That is a very different thing." He walked back to her bed and looked down at her. "The integration protocol has been expanded. Your species will be given a permanent seat on the Union Military Council. Human officers will be assigned to every major fleet. Your training methods will be studied and adapted." Elena stared at him. "Because of what I did? Because of what you showed us. You demonstrated that humans are not prey. You are not predators either. Not in the way we understand the term. You are something new. Something dangerous." He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small object. Elena recognized it immediately. Her grandfather's pen. It had been repaired. The metal was straight again. The tip was sharp. It looked almost new, except for the scratches and marks that told the story of what it had done. "We found this beside you," Vorix said. "The repair technicians wanted to melt it down and replace it with something better. I forbade them." He placed the pen in her hand. "This weapon killed 12 of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. It deserves to be preserved." Elena held the pen tightly. She felt the weight of it, the history of it. Her grandfather had carried this through 3 wars. Now she had carried it through 1 more. "Thank you, Commander." Vorix nodded once and walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold and looked back. "The Academy is building a new display in the Hall of Valor. Weapons of great significance are displayed there. Blades that killed tyrants, guns that won wars, artifacts of legend." He paused. "Your pen will be among them. The plaque will read, 'The deadliest weapon is the mind that wields it.'" Elena smiled. It hurt, but she smiled anyway. "My grandfather would be proud. He should be." Vorix opened the door. "Rest now, Cadet Vasquez. You have earned it." He left. The door closed behind him. Elena lay in the bed and looked at the pen in her hand. She thought about Earth, about the small, Soft creatures who had climbed down from the trees and looked at a world full of predators. Creatures with no claws, no armor, no poison. Creatures that should have died 1,000,000 times over, but they had not died. They had fought. They had adapted. They had conquered, and now they were among the stars. Elena closed her eyes and held the pen close to her heart. The galaxy would remember this night. They would remember the Academy massacre, and how a single human had stopped it. They would tell stories about the soft species that turned out to be the deadliest of them all. But Elena would remember something simpler. She would remember her grandfather's voice, telling her the truth that humans had always known. It was never about the weapon. It was never about the strength or the speed or the armor. It was about the mind, the will, the refusal to give up. That was what made humans dangerous. That was what made them human. And as she drifted off to sleep, Elena Vasquez smiled one more time. The apex predators had come for the Academy. The human had been waiting.